They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still...
Sunny Hostin just had a total emotional meltdown, like a signal drop in the middle of a thunderstorm, after Kirk and Joe Rogan shredded her ego live. She didn't just tear up, she practically unraveled. The tears were real. The confusion, obvious. This moment was so wild it made daytime drama look subtle. But what exactly hit her so hard that she looked frozen in regret? Brace yourself. Because this verbal takedown was so fierce, even her teleprompter would have cried for help. You won't believe how intense it really got. Kirk didn't hold back. He came in swinging with truth so sharp it cut through the camera lens. These weren't just basic facts. These were verbal grenades thrown straight at the image Sunny had built around herself. He laid bare the quiet truth that no one in her circle wants to admit, that millionaire media elites love preaching to hard-working people they don't actually relate to anymore. He called out the exact game Sunny plays to stay relevant while drowning out anyone who disagrees. While Sunny scrambled for a comeback, social media exploded like a spark in dry grass. Clips of Kirk's takedown started spreading fast, not just because of what he said, but how brutally it exposed the massive gap between elite TV voices and everyday Americans.
The nerve of this woman to whom the country has given so much to try to dump on people who didn't go to college. Look at you. Look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, it's or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine.
Face gave it away first, a raised eyebrow, then a fake little laugh that couldn't hide the storm brewing underneath. But as Kirk's words kept echoing across social media and TV screens, the tension only grew. And then came the knockout blow. No soft delivery, no sugarcoating, just raw, direct truth. Joe Rogan, without even stepping onto the set, shattered whatever defense Sunny had left with a single unfiltered swipe. Rogan didn't come armed with graphs. He came armed with sarcasm. He didn't rattle off statistics. He threw down blunt reality. The way he called out the absurdity of mainstream pundits made Sunny's entire segment look like a comedy sketch gone wrong. He asked how someone could spend years talking down to viewers and still act shocked when people started laughing back. It wasn't just an insult. It was a cultural sentence, handed down in real time. As Sunny tried to keep her composure, the cameras caught everything. Her fingers twitched. Her speech stumbled. She looked to her co-hosts with wide eyes, silently pleading for backup. But none came. No one could shield her from the tidal wave crashing down. The studio audience, the same one that usually claps at anything said around that table, sat frozen. Some even visibly confused, caught between cheering and watching a moment they knew was spiraling into history. This wasn't a bad segment. It was a full-on collapse. Years of carefully constructed credibility, emotional monologues, and outrage-fueled rants were crumbling live, in front of the world. Charlie's attack was methodical. Facts, data, precision. Rogan's was brutal. Mockery, tone, rhythm. Together, they didn't just challenge her. They tore apart the fantasy that she had any grip on the conversation.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stopped looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, right. whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side. We're on the right side. And if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do. And no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon.
Sunny's desperate attempt to twist the moment into just another panel debate failed before it even began. Her talking points sounded old, stiff, and totally disconnected from the brutal truth that had just been broadcast across the country. Within minutes, people were flooding the internet with comparison clips, her smug confidence from past episodes stacked next to her visible unease now. The comments rolled in fast and furious. She finally got exposed. Now she knows how it feels to be on the other side. One meme exploded across social media, showing Kirk and Rogan as a knockout duo. The caption screamed, "When facts meet mockery, and both land perfectly." The online crowd had made up its mind. And Sunny wasn't on the winning team. Back at the table, she forced a smile, but it was obvious this wasn't her usual crowd response. The applause sign flickered, but the clapping was weak, scattered, unsure. She glanced downward, then around, then off camera, like she was hoping someone, anyone, would rescue her. But this wasn't taped. This was real, raw, and live. And there was no editing button for the emotional freefall playing out on national television. The producers mumbled urgently in her ear. But what could they possibly say? The unraveling had already begun. And the image she had built, so confident, so righteous, was being shattered in front of the entire country. Charlie Kirk's words echoed through every corner of the internet. Threads, clips, reaction videos. It was everywhere. And people weren't just watching. They were re-watching, analyzing, and celebrating what many were calling the most unexpected political slap of the year. Text continues in next message due to length. Here's the continuation of your edited and punctuated text from section 13 onward.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies-infested.
Every single jab hit the mark, because everything Rogan described was exactly what Sunny had just shown. Pure entitlement, total detachment, and outrage that felt more rehearsed than real. She made one last attempt to take back control by cutting into the next topic with a dramatic monologue, but this time, no one was buying it. Even her co-hosts started shifting in their chairs, clearly uncomfortable, as the tension in the room grew thick enough to slice. Mid-sentence, she faltered, visibly shaken. Her voice cracked. The confidence she was known for vanished, replaced with a shaky, defensive tone that made her look completely exposed. Her polished armor had crumbled, right there, on national TV. One audience member was caught whispering, "She looks like she's going to cry." And they weren't exaggerating. Her eyes started blinking too fast. Her lips were tight. Her fingers clenched the edge of the table like she was bracing for emotional impact. The cruel twist. Sunny had built her reputation mocking others for being too sensitive, too uninformed, too weak. Yet now she was the one unraveling, completely undone by the cold force of facts and accountability. And then, just like wildfire, the hashtag took off. Hashtag Sunny Breakdown. What started as a few snarky posts turned into a full-blown social media explosion across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Her meltdown wasn't just a TV moment. It had become a viral sensation. Sunny Hostin gets exposed on live TV. Rogan and Kirk end the View's delusion. When reality finally walks into the studio. These weren't just video titles. They were internet verdicts, stamped and shared thousands of times. Even people who had never watched The View before suddenly tuned in, because watching a media personality so full of herself get dismantled calmly and cleanly, without yelling, without name-calling, is rare gold. And audiences couldn't get enough. Sunny tried to play it cool, but her flushed cheeks told the truth. She grabbed her coffee cup with shaky hands and darted nervous glances toward the backstage curtain, hoping someone might end the nightmare. But there was no escape. This wasn't pre-recorded. It wasn't polished. This was raw, unscripted, and unstoppable. Her meltdown had become a national spectacle. And America had a front-row seat.
Get it. I also hate Joy Behar. So I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird. So I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show. If the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of, like, there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set.
Even Whoopi Goldberg, famous for her big reactions, sat strangely silent. Her stillness wasn't support. It was self-preservation. Nobody wanted to be caught standing too close to a career in free fall. By the time the segment ended, Sunny didn't even look like herself anymore. Her eyes were tired, her voice trembling, her face locked in a look of barely contained panic. She didn't just lose a debate. She lost command of the entire studio. Charlie Kirk didn't even have to walk into that building to win. His message was so powerful it ripped straight through the screen and echoed off every corner of the View's polished set. And Joe Rogan, his calm, razor-sharp takedown of media hypocrisy felt like a stand-up routine with the precision of a courtroom grilling. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just smirked and told the truth. And that truth, it scorched, especially for someone like Sunny, who spent years curating the message instead of confronting it. But now the script had flipped. And it wasn't going back. Backstage, staff whispered nervously, scrambling to figure out how to salvage the broadcast. But some things can't be fixed, not when the world has already clipped, posted, and memed every second across the internet. Sunny made one last push. She tried to speak with authority again. But halfway through her sentence, her voice cracked. And instead of a sharp comeback, she let out an awkward cough that hung in the air like defeat. It was the sound of collapse. Soft, shaky, and impossible to deny. And as the screen cut to commercial, the frozen expression on her face said everything. This was never how the script was supposed to go. The producers didn't just go to break. They bolted to it. A few seconds of dead air to let her breathe. Or maybe, to keep the public from witnessing the next stage of the unraveling.
The episode of you when you were on The View, when you were running for president, you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
That red hat that says "Make America Great Again." Might as well just put a.
When the show returned, Sunny looked composed. But it was all just a mask. A thin cover over the wreckage that had unfolded just moments earlier. The internet wasn't buying it. And the audience watching from home could see right through the act. Clips from the meltdown had already jumped across every platform, circulated by journalists, comedians, politicians, and even people who once proudly defended her. One viral comment read, "This was the moment she lost the crowd. I used to support her. Not anymore." Others began posting side-by-side screenshots of her face, one from the confident beginning of the show, and another from her shaken state at the end. The caption, "The fastest fall from grace in daytime TV history." And the comparison, absolutely brutal. The power dynamic had completely flipped, and Sunny felt it in her bones. For the first time, she wasn't steering the show. She was the show. Not as a host, but as the cautionary tale. And it wasn't inspiring. It was painful to watch. Charlie and Joe never needed to be in the same studio. Their voices did all the damage. One fired off statistics like arrows. The other sliced through the nonsense with cold humor. And together, they left a crater where the show's credibility once stood. In an instant, the curtain was pulled. Not on the set, but on the act. The confident commentator. The moral compass. The seasoned media warrior. All gone. Left behind was a woman who clearly had no idea what just hit her. No teleprompter could have helped her now. You can prepare a speech, but you can't prepare for reality when it crashes through like a wrecking ball in heels and a headset. And the memes, they just kept coming. One showed a beaming Sunny from the intro, beside a disheveled, stunned Sunny from the final moments. The caption, "When the echo chamber finally echoes back." It was ruthless. But it wasn't wrong.
Talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this, and as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last.
Even the applause at the end didn't feel real. It was thin, delayed, and full of tension. Everyone in the room knew they had just witnessed something historic, but weren't sure if they should clap or duck for cover. Sunny's final expression said more than any closing line ever could. She wasn't furious. She was frozen, like someone who had practiced for the spotlight her whole life, only to be overwhelmed by the glare the moment the script slipped from her hands. Her co-hosts fumbled to change the subject, to bring back some normalcy, but nothing worked. Every attempt to move forward fell flat, drowned out by the weight of what had just happened. It was like trying to steer a ship that had already hit the ocean floor. By the time the show signed off, the internet had erupted into chaos. Headlines started pouring in from all corners. Sunny Hostin shattered on air. Kirk and Joe Rogan break the daytime illusion. The View's worst day yet. Former defenders weren't just quiet, they were turning. Comments like, "Maybe she needed this." That's what happens when you talk at people instead of with them. Were everywhere, brutal, but impossible to argue with. Joe Rogan didn't need a standing ovation. He delivered impact. Kirk didn't need a live set. He delivered truth. Together, they didn't just win a debate. They exposed the fantasy world the media had been clinging to for far too long. Sunny's breakdown didn't happen in screams. It happened in silence, in the tiny cracks that formed with every unanswered point and every fumbled comeback. And that quiet kind of unraveling, it hits harder because there's nothing to drown it out. What the world saw that day wasn't just the collapse of a person. It was the collapse of the power she thought she had. Her control, her credibility, her confidence, all slipped away, live, unedited, and irreversible. As replays of the episode flooded digital platforms, people weren't watching for fun. They were watching to understand how it all fell apart. It became a masterclass in what happens when carefully scripted narratives run headfirst into unfiltered truth. Sure, she might show up the next day. She might even try to laugh it off. But that trembling voice, that frozen stare, that moment of pure disbelief, that's now etched into her legacy forever. You can't delete a viral collapse. You can't unring the bell once it's sounded. And no spotlight is bright enough to cover the shadows your own words leave behind. So as the show faded to black, so did the illusion of control. And what stood in its place was something far more real, the fall of Sunny's unchecked authority. And the beginning of a long, unescapable reckoning. That was the day Sunny Hostin didn't explode. She imploded, not with drama, but with silence, unease, and the terrifying truth. The audience wasn't with her anymore.